Hi there, and welcome to a very warm and humid July tarot. Please stay cool and keep yourself hydrated out there. It's going to be really hot this coming week. So this month's questions came mainly from looking forward to the future to see where certain threads were leading. There's still so much uncertainty everywhere, at the individual level, at the family level, and the level of cities, towns, and nations. The paradigm change is in full swing, and we are in it to the eyeballs. We are watching everything shift, and I hope that you are more amazed than afraid. When nothing changes for decades, it's easy to think that nothing ever will change. But as you can plainly see, that is not the case. So let's look at what the cards have to say in answer to these questions. Question number 1. What do the cards have to say about the future of those who fell for the gender propaganda? Question number 2. What do the cards have to say about Donald Trump and the possibility that he is working with extraterrestrials? Question number 3. What is the future of the two-party, three-branch system of government in the U.S. Republic? And question number 4, what advice does the animal kingdom have for us regarding the future of big cities and the people who live in them? And the cards drawn were card number 1, the 6 of Swords. Kind of a difficult card here. Card number 2 was the 8 of Wands. Card number 3 was the Devil. This is a major arcana card. And card number 4 was the Beaver, number 22 in the animal medicine deck. So let's look at these questions a little more deeply. Question number 1, what do the cards have to say about the future of those who fell for the gender propaganda? And the card drawn here was the 6 of Swords. So this is a card with a potent message for anyone who decided to switch to a different gender, as well as the families affected by the switch. This is a card of, quote, translation due to the need to connect worlds. The worlds being connected here are the male world and the female world within one individual who wants to experience both worlds without having to die and come back in a new life as the opposite sex. Since the goal of life is to collect experience, as much experience as you can get because of the wisdom that it brings you, we could almost say that those people are trying to save a bit of time and energy while advancing their development. The card shows a ferryman standing at the back of a boat and using a long black pole to push the boat across the water. The boat has long been a symbol of trying to stand on something that cannot hold you. In this case, the water. The boat also symbolizes the conscious mind and its efforts to manage the constantly moving waters of the subconscious where all possibilities exist. The ferryman who pushes the boat back and forth across the water symbolizes someone who cannot settle down in one place or on one identity, and ends up going back and forth without ever realizing that the task is to integrate the two identities within the self, which then results in a whole new way of being. A woman and a child sit huddled in the boat with their cloaks over their heads. They do not look forward, which indicates that there was no assessment of results before taking decisive action. And the cloaks over their heads say that some kind of hiding is taking place, usually hiding from reality or from the true self. Eventually, they are forced to retreat to new shores. The two figures huddled in the boat represent a contrast to the masculine figure of the ferryman. Together, the three figures, the male ferryman, the female, and the child, hold three messages. The male represents the active, conscious self who acts like a know-it-all and thinks he can do whatever he wants without consequences, including making decisions for others. The female, who's all huddled in here, represents the passive feminine side that often feels inferior, lets others decide the path, and does not want to take responsibility for deciding anything. The child represents the immature and unconscious self that is not aware of why it does what it does and has not been willing to face the fact that decisions can bring unpleasant surprises. The warning here is that at some point in the future, there will have to be a more aware consciousness that takes responsibility for its situation in life. Because the old saying is, wherever you go, there you are. You can't run away from yourself. So in the front of the boat, 6 swords stand upright. Now, swords are the symbol of thinking and the intellect. They also represent the pen and the writer who writes the story of his or her own life. In the boat, the swords symbolize both the ballast of old prejudices being dragged forward into every new situation and the need to let clear, concise thought guide one's direction. Here, the swords stand upright, and they represent the guiding thoughts that are directing the boat. However, they are positioned such that 4 of them form almost a wall, making it difficult to see exactly where the boat is headed. Several of the swords look as if they have pinned down the woman and the child, making it difficult to move. On the left side of the boat, the water is calm. On the right side of the boat, the water is rough. Water is the universal symbol of emotions, and the rough water indicates that there is likely the hope of moving across those rough waters to get to calm water. But the boat is positioned in such a way that says the move to calm water is not guaranteed, possibly because the rough water on the right symbolizes actions that have already been taken and cannot easily be undone. Right side is action, left side is feeling, emotion. So in addition, the distant shoreline shows that everything is blue, even the trees. Trees represent family, and the blue color points to family that might be sad, over-emotional, or even depressed because of choices made by one of the family members. The gray sky calls for detachment, letting go of prejudice, which could amount to letting go of the family member who fell for the propaganda, or letting go of old ways of seeing the world and how we should believe in that world and what we should believe in that world. The black pole in the hands of the ferryman carries 2 messages. One is that the pole pushes the boat forward only if it can touch bottom. This hints that there may be a need for individuals or families who have been seriously polarized into differing camps to hit bottom before they can sort out how to move forward. The black pole also symbolizes the need to stay in touch with basics. At the bottom of everything are the basics. So when you look at this card, you see only the backs of the people, not their faces. They have their backs to us. On the good side, this points to ignoring the common point of view in order to explore and learn. On the negative side, this indicates turning one's back on oneself and locking one's mind onto a one-way street. However, if we go back to the beginning where we said, this is a card of, quote, translation due to the need to connect worlds. Translation due to the need to connect worlds. We have the clear message that both the masculine and the feminine characteristics must be integrated in each of us if we are going to mature into our full potential. Is the one who fell for the gender propaganda needing to realize that they can be comfortable in the body they have as long as they themselves can get past the self-imposed limitations they held about males and females? Can they step into a self that does a beautiful job of balancing masculine and feminine tendencies and skills that have been well integrated? The Six of Swords is known as the Lord of Science. And key words for the Six of Swords are equilibrium, transition, separation, conflict, limits, delays, obstacles, journey, seeking greener pastures, getaway, proclamation, leaving anxieties behind, gaining perspective, and unexpected disruption. Question number 2. What do the cards have to say about Donald Trump and the possibility he's working with extraterrestrials? And the card drawn here was the Eight of Wands, one of the very few cards with no people on it. I think the aces qualify as cards with no people. They just have a hand, holding the ace, whatever the ace is. But in the minor arcana, there's only 2, the Eight of Wands and the Three of Swords. So the Eight of Wands, one of the very few cards with no people on it, which says that our question about Trump and extraterrestrials should not be the focus. The focus should be the many changes occurring at every level of life. Wands represent change, action. They represent changes occurring at every level of life, energy in motion, which is actually consciousness in motion. And consciousness in motion means changes are happening. I think we can all agree that Donald Trump has certainly put a lot of changes in motion. The Eight of Wands advises us to reckon with those changes because they will occur at many levels and will require an increased exchange of energies between and among us. Exchange of energies means cooperation, communication, that kind of thing. This increased exchange makes many things easier, and it also makes some things possible that would otherwise not be a possibility. When you look at the card, you see 8 wands of varying lengths coming in from the left, which indicates action that is stirring the pot of daily life in a major way. When actions and events are new and not normal or expected, they generate powerful emotions. Emotions are sometimes seen as the magic carpet carrying us through life. And the advice that goes with this card is stay on the carpet. It has already taken off. So since our question is about Donald Trump and the possibility that he's working with ETs, This says that he may have been working with ETs long before we even thought about such a possibility. The wands appear to be coming in at a slant, resembling arrows about to hit the ground. This symbolizes something we've all heard, all of us. Lately, we've heard over and over, everything is about to change and life in the future will be much different. Yeah. Those wands are still in the air and have not hit the ground. So this tells us that the coming changes have not quite hit us or affected us yet, but they're on their way. The fact that there are 8 of them says that there may be an upward shift in the frequencies of consciousness, because this card symbolizes moving up an octave to a new octave of life, also known as a shift to a higher dimension. The wands are stacked up one above the other, almost like rungs on a ladder, and this arrangement has sometimes been seen as Jacob's ladder, offering a pathway to the sky, which hints at the possibility of a pathway to the stars and an introduction to people from elsewhere in the galaxy, maybe introduced by Trump himself. A blue sky fills almost the entire card, except for a bit of green and yellow landscape at the bottom. And this big, open, wide sky represents a wide open country where there is much to be dealt with and many changes needed. The wide blue sky without a single bird visible also symbolizes a land whose wings have been broken and must learn to fly again. Many reference books say the 8 of Wands points to some kind of great task needing to be undertaken that should incorporate intuition and big awareness. A large number of changes all coming at once usually indicates a situation in which people were greatly distracted, and the small continuous changes that life requires were not made, resulting in massive change now coming fast and furious. The green in the landscape indicates both freshness and newness, as well as a caution against naivete and immaturity, while the yellow says it's important to use our heads, our intellect, and let go of fear. There's a river at the bottom of the card, and that river tells us that the river flows onward without stopping, and so will the incoming changes. That is why this card says the focus should be on the incoming changes, not on people or personalities who might be bringing those changes. We are to pay attention to the changes and be ready to flex and bend with them. The house or castle on the hill, it's a distant hill, it's way in the background, but it represents a homecoming, a time of reaching one's potential and being comfortable with that evolved self, or in this case, that evolved nation. However, we need to deal with the changes hanging in the air between us and that place of secure, evolved potential. The distant house shows a few trees in the landscape, and the trees symbolize family. Since our question includes ETs, the distant trees hint at the possibility of distant family somewhere in that wide open blue sky. The 8 of Wands is known as the Lord of Swiftness, and this tells us that the changes will come swiftly, one after another, which is why we should be prepared for change. They will come so quickly that those who got tired of waiting and began to ignore the situation might be caught off guard. Keywords for the 8 of Wands are parallel developments, building bridges, many changes, energies in motion, worldly involvement, distant travel, higher learning, dynamic, expansive, rapid change, urgency, coordinated effort, and valor. Question number 3. What is the future of the two-party, three-branch system of government in the U.S. Republic? And the card drawn here was the Devil, number 15 in the major arcana. We've seen this card a couple times, I think twice in the past year, and both times it came up in response to a question involving government. And now here it is, third time, third question involving government. So evidently, we have more to understand, more to decide or do where government is concerned. The first reaction to this card is often dismay, but given the drama now unfolding in and around Washington, D.C., it carries a message that actually is quite hopeful because it represents a do or die call for bringing light into a dark situation that needs to be understood so it can be corrected. When you look at the card, you see a large horned creature. His head is shaped like a triangle that points downward, and he has large horns that also curve downward. He has hairy legs, the wings of a bat, and his feet are the talons of a predatory bird. He's sitting on a black box to which two humans, a man and a woman, are chained by their necks, although the chains are loose. The humans also have horns and a tail, with the tail of the man ending in fire and the tail of the woman ending in wine grapes. There's a torch in the devil's left hand, which he's holding low to the ground, and the entire background is black. The devil's large triangular head pointing downward carries a major warning that says, do not allow negative energies to pull everything down. Let me repeat that. Do not allow negative energies to pull everything down. Since we are asking about the Democrat, Republican parties, as well as the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government, this constitutes a pretty serious warning. And it tells us that negative attitudes are just as destructive as full-blown revolutions. Is this hinting that we are in danger of wrecking our nation with our negativity? Those horns on both the devil and the two people standing in front of him represent uncivilized choices and behaviors that lead to the breakdown of societies and governments. We, the people, are the ones who give that two-party, three-branch government its power. And we select the people who represent us. And thus, the devil's message here is speaking directly to something that we, the people, are doing or not doing, something uncivilized. In what ways are we making uncivilized choices that do not support the system we have created? This message is reinforced by the chains worn by the man and the woman standing in front of the devil. They are chained to the black box, but they could slip those chains over their heads and be free if they wanted to. The black box represents materialism, and the chains represent our wish to have whatever we want, whenever we want it, regardless of consequences or the spiritual cost. What is the spiritual cost of becoming slaves to unlimited money, unlimited knowledge, alcohol, drugs, worldly pleasures, power, or other compulsive behaviors? Spirit is an ancient word for energy and the love that characterizes untainted energy. The hairy legs represent the energy of anger and prejudice that do not take a stand for love and have not been subjected to the light of reason. This is further complicated by the taloned feet that symbolize grasping at things and ideas or taking a stand based on biases that are self-centered and immature. So how often do you suppose biased individuals consider the impact of their choices on the next 7 generations? Probably not very often. The devil has large bat wings, symbolizing the ability to fly in the dark and avoid running into anything that might interfere with its ability to bedevil humans and drive them into torment, fear, and inappropriate action. He holds a torch in his left hand, but keeps it low in order to avoid the light. A torch also symbolizes unreasonable desires and passions that pull people away from the self-examination that brings enlightenment. How enlightened is the 2-party, 3-branch government of the United States? How enlightened are the people who give that government its power? The naked man and woman chained to the black box have tails, which represents the animal nature of people who have not done the work needed to awaken consciousness and bring wisdom. The tip of the man's tail is fire, the symbol of uncontrolled passions. And the tip of the woman's tail holds a bunch of grapes, a symbol of wine used to alter perception. The entire background of this card is black, which is not only the symbol of a dark aura or energy surrounding our government, it calls for creative thought. The black calls for creative thought, creative energy, and a need to get out of the box in order to envision something new and workable. Black symbolizes the darkness of the uterus, which brings forth birth. It represents the cave of retreat, where one sits in darkness to meditate without distraction on what is needed in today's world. The devil card represents illusions, unreality, destructive beliefs, and self-deprivation. It is a sobering card that says so much about our future here in the US and tells us that we are on the horns of a great dilemma, a terrible dilemma, and we need to set ourselves free. The devil represents a kind of vampire that sucks the lifeblood from its victims. So does the dilemma we face require us to confront and bring to light this vampire? This does not mean we must kill or destroy our government system, but it does mean that we must face the fact that we are responsible for governing ourselves. If we do not want a system that sucks the lifeblood out of its people, we must tame the system and make it work the way it was intended to work, or else rework it entirely using what we have learned. Keywords for the devil are lack of humility, failure to serve, puffed up, spiritual cost, vampirism, material desires, uncivilized, petty biases, torment, dilemma, negativity, anger, prejudice, unfaithful, unrefined, extreme passion, and animal instincts. Question number 4. What advice does the animal kingdom have for us regarding the future of big cities and the people who live in them. And the card drawn here was the beaver, number 22 in the animal medicine deck. And I don't think we could have drawn a better card for our question than the beaver, which is the card of the builder. Anyone who has been involved in building and construction knows that anything you build is outdated by the time it is finished. We have cities here in the US that were built more than 100 years ago. They were expressions of the goals, needs, and dreams of the people of that time. Today, they are relics of a past that needs constant retrofitting in order to be useful. Their windows, doors, wiring, heating, ventilation, and spatial layouts reflect a different stage of science, engineering, market dynamics, and lifestyles. Beaver's message is that we are in a new time and we hold new dreams that need to be recognized and built. Is this a message about building the new earth? The beaver is not only a master builder, it is a keystone animal. A keystone animal is one whose efforts to create a place to settle and fill their needs ends up creating an entire ecosystem that others can also settle in. They build dams across small creeks, creating a pond whose water brings bugs, then rodents, then bushes, then trees and birds, larger mammals, and eventually predators. The whole system. The beaver builds a system that supports many kinds of life. Now, if there's one thing that can be said about cities, it is that they support many kinds of life. However, the message from Beaver carries a key question. Have you built in as many escape routes as possible? This suggests that the city is a place to live, but may also be a place with many predators, requiring many alternative escape routes. Beavers build extraordinary dams. Their main food is tree bark. The dam not only serves to create a pond deep enough for the beaver to build a secure home safely away from predators, the dam also serves as a storage place for beavers' food in winter because the dam is built from young trees. They still have their bark. So beavers do a beautiful job of maintaining the dam because it is a structure that provides security and food. But perhaps the question the beaver would ask the city dwellers is, where's your dam? In other words, a serious shortcoming of modern cities is the inability to live in a sustainable manner because there is no place to raise food. When beavers build their lodge, it is something of a marvel. Entrances are underwater so they can come and go safely without being seen. Lodges often accommodate several beaver families, and each family has a separate area for themselves, their children, and sleeping. The more elaborate lodges even have canals running through them. Those canals provided safe places for young ones to develop their swimming skills. Because beavers are adapted to aquatic life and they can stay underwater for 15 minutes because they have large lungs. Because of this, one of their messages is learn to use breath work as part of your everyday practice. A beaver's teeth continue to grow throughout their life. This means they must continue to chew in order to wear down the teeth to a reasonable length. Chewing is the symbol of wrestling with a thought or working with a challenge in order to come to a suitable solution. Since our question is about the future of big cities, Have we even begun to wrestle with the question of what to do with cities now that we can work from home and no longer need to cluster tightly around big business centers? If skyscrapers symbolize hierarchies, fights for dominance, and contained consciousness, what would cities look like if they symbolized cooperation, recognition of individual power, and expanded consciousness? Is it time to acknowledge the difficult challenges created by gigantic cities and begin offering new solutions? The beaver is a symbol of dreams and the need to honor and build our dreams. Beaver is an industrious doer, and he builds what he needs and then discovers that others have the same needs. The result is an entire community of critters that settle in the ecosphere that beavers create. The greater the variety of animals who join their ecosphere, the more elaborate their lodges become in terms of alternative escape routes. Because of their astounding building skills, beavers are often said to be a symbol of the ancient masons and their amazing feats of construction. So whenever this card comes up, it's time to ask some important questions. Have we taken good care of our cities? Are they in need of repair? Have we gotten lost in illusions and forgot that there's a three-dimensional world that needs constant attention and updating if we're going to live successfully in it? Is there a new way to think about cities and how to build them? Or is the city a stepping stone to a new kind of community, more secure and suited to today's needs, dreams, and lifestyles? So that's it for the tarot. So before we go, let's summarize what we've said. And question number 1 was, what do the cards have to say about the future of those who fell for the gender propaganda? And the card drawn here was the 6 of Swords, a card with a potent message for anybody who decided to switch to a different gender, as well as the families affected by that switch. So this is a card whose message is translation due to the need to connect worlds. Is that individual who switched needing to connect something within themselves? The worlds being connected here are the masculine world and the feminine world. So we humans are meant to collect as much experience as possible in life in order to gather wisdom. Why would an individual want to try both worlds? Might it be because they're trying to save a bit of time and energy while advancing their development without having to die and come back in a new life as the opposite sex? Just get it all done in one lifetime. The problem is that when it comes to human development, there are few shortcuts. And this card suggests that those who switch genders could do the necessary work of integrating all the parts of the self and avoid the polarization, depression, and estrangement that sometimes results from such choices. Question number 2 was, what do the cards have to say about Donald Trump and the possibility he's working with extraterrestrials? And the card drawn here was the 8 of Wands, one of the few cards with no people on it, because this card says our question about Trump and extraterrestrials should not be the focus. The focus should be the many changes occurring at every level of life and our need to prepare for those changes. Wands represent energy in motion, which is actually consciousness in motion. And consciousness in motion means changes are happening. I think we all agree that Donald Trump has certainly put a lot of changes in motion. But the Eight of Wands advises us to focus on those changes because they will occur at many levels and will require an increased exchange of energies between and among us, the people. We're going to have to talk and communicate about this. The card indicates that the changes have not really hit us yet, but they are inbound. And that could result in a shift to a higher dimension. Wow. And those changes will reveal things that we did not know, as well as make possible things that would otherwise not be possible. Question number 3. What is the future of the two-party, three-branch system of government in the U.S. Republic? And the card drawn here was the Devil, number 15 in the major arcana. And as I said, the first reaction to this card is often dismay. But given the drama now unfolding in and around Washington, D.C., this card carries a message that actually is kind of hopeful, because it represents a do-or-die call for bringing light into a dark situation that needs to be understood so it can be corrected. After all, what does the future hold for slaves, especially if they're slaves to unlimited money, knowledge, alcohol, drugs, worldly pleasures, power, or other compulsive behaviors? We are on the horns of a terrible dilemma, and we need to set ourselves free. Has our system become a vampire that sucks the lifeblood out of us, leaving us lost in illusions and unreal beliefs? The most important message of this card as it relates to our question is, don't let negativity bring down the entire system. Negative attitudes are just as destructive as full-blown revolutions. The second most important message is that we need to let go of the chains that bind us to a system that denies us or destroys us. The Devil card represents illusions, unreality, destructive beliefs, and self-deprivation. If we do not want a system that sucks the lifeblood out of us, we must face the fact that we are the ones who will have to tame that system and make it work the way it was intended to work, or else rework it entirely, retaining what is good and using what we have learned. Question number 4. What advice does the animal kingdom have for us regarding the future of big cities and the people who live in them? And the card drawn here was the Beaver, number 22 in the animal medicine deck. I don't think we could have drawn a better card for our question than the Beaver, which is the card of the builder, the card of the dreamer. Anyone who's been involved in building and construction knows that anything you build is outdated by the time it is finished. We have cities here in the U.S. that were built more than 100 years ago. They were the expressions of the goals, the needs, and the dreams of the people of that time. Today, they are relics of a past that needs constant retrofitting in order to be useful. Their windows, doors, wiring, heating, ventilation, and spatial layouts reflect a whole different stage of science, engineering, market dynamics, and lifestyles. We're in a whole different place. Beaver's message is that we are in a new time and we hold new dreams that need to be recognized and built. Are the cities we have a stepping stone to a new kind of community, more secure and suited to today's needs, dreams, and lifestyles? Is this a message or a hint about building the new earth? It just might be. So that's all for this month. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, we are looking at a future that we will have a hand in shaping. So it's good to be thinking about dropping foolish biases, deciding what is most important to deal with, and get out of the box in order to be ready for some of the changes to hit. So, have a wonderful month. Enjoy the summer, and happy 4th of July to everyone. I'll see you in mid-July in the Look-See or next month in the August Tarot. Take care.